Okay, yesterday we left off with an interesting shaila in Sadik Chesam days. If a shliach does more than the balabasi asked him to do, the balabasi asked him to sell a lesach of land, and he sold the core, which is a tulusachim. Is the sale chal on the original lesach or is batal? Do we say moisef al devarav and he's still a shliach, or do we say no, that he's marvel al mitzvaysav or marvel al devarav and the shlichus is batal completely, and therefore even the sale of the lesach is not a sale. We wanted to bring a raya from a Gemara in Me'ilah, where shliach was told to do X 3, and he bought more than 6, and he's small, this one's small, and the third person's small. He was giving away meat over there, and we said in fact that what he there wasn't where he was moisef al devarov. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He said take 3 on the Mishaleach, take 3 on me, and the guy took 3 himself. That they didn't ask. In other words, take 1 for me, and that's what the one that the shliach told me to do. So in other words, you can't be in raya from the Gemara in Me'ilah, because there he didn't add on to the shlichus. He did exactly a shlichus. So we're going to bring in our Mishnah to be poshet the shaila. Again, what's the shaila? Very, very. You say this to a shaila. Whether a person does more than he's supposed to do, whether the shlichus is still in vogue, it's still there, or it's completely nullified. So Tashma, up to Tzaddik Chesam Beis, we're 6 lines up from the bottom. Tashma. The ksuba was worth a mana. That was a ksuba. In other words, she had a ksuba, but she got married. She was an almana. She has a ksuba of a mana. Umachra shava mana v'dinar b'mana, and she sold a land that's worth a mana plus an additional dinar b'mana for her mana, for a mana, and mechra batal. So we said it's batal. Now this is the way we learned, and now let's see how the Gemara is going to switch that around. We learned she was entitled to 100. She was selling a land that was worth 125. So since the land was worth 125, she didn't have a lien on the land. She had no shaykhs at 25. Therefore, Mechir is batal because she had no shaykhs to the land. That was the way we learned. Here's the way the Gemara is learning now. My love, the zavin shava mana v'dinar b'mana v'dinar. In other words, she sold more than she was supposed to. She was only entitled to 100, and she's selling 125 for 125. Umay b'mana, when it said you're selling it for a mana, it doesn't mean she sold the land for a mana. It means she sold it for her mana, right? B'mana shelah, for her ksuba. Umay afilu, what's afilu? Of course to get it. Afilu here, imeres achsres adina b'liyashim b'din mekarka, right? Even I'm going to turn the din mekarka, nonetheless, v'ktani mechra batal. So l'chayr we can be poshet the shaila. Just on simplifying the language, if she was selling, she's entitled to 100, so a shlichus is 100, and she's selling for 125. That's the same as you're entitled to sell a lesech, and you're selling a kor, so you're doing more. Mechara batal. Let's be poshet from here that the deal is off, meaning she's oiker estevarav. Your shlichus is batal. That's the raya we want to bring from our Mishnah. Let's do it one more time. I'll do it. Rabbi Rosenstein is coming on. I'll do it. We'll cover him. Okay, so we had a shaila yesterday again. If a shlichus sells more than he's supposed to sell, he's supposed to sell a lesach, and he sells a core, which is double a lesach. We want to bring a raya from our Mishnah that the mech is batal. Why? A woman is selling a land of, she's entitled to 100. She's selling a land of that's 125. So she's selling more than she's supposed to. Machra batal. So we can place it the shaila that if the shliach sells more, that even on the original lesech, right, it's gone. That's what the Gemara wants to say. Now, obviously, there's a different way to view our Mishnah, and that's the way the Gemara is going to view our Mishnah, where she sold she took a land that she had the right to. It says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna b'reider of Nasin Loi. It's speaking b'da azal. It's speaking where she went ahead and sold it cheaply. Now there's the mech is batal because she sold a land that was worth a mana and a dina. She sold it for a mana. In other words, it's not speaking where she went ahead and sold a field for the right price. Now let's use the vernacular. She didn't sell a field for 1 1/4 for 1 1/4. That was worth 1 1/4 for 1 1/4. She sold the field for 1.25 for 1. Because in other words, why? Because she only needs 1. She only needs 100. So she sells 125 for 100, and 100, it's bottle. Why is it bottle? Because she had no right to that 25 in the first place. But it's not speaking where she did more, where the field was, she was entitled to 100 and she sold the 125 for 125, and there's no loss over here. There was a loss over here. She took a field 125 and sold it for less. So therefore, this has no bearing on Ashayla. Once you tell me that she's not doing her shlichus, not more than a shlichus, then it can't be Paishat Ashayla. Fred the Gemara, Hamid the Sefer bid the Oizel, when the Sefer of the Mishnah is where she undersold, Avi Reisha bid the Loyazol. It must be the Reisha speaking where she did not undersell, and it must be speaking where she sold 125 for 125. The Tani Sefer, we're learning the Sefer. We're in Sadik Tes on the, I don't know who the iPad is. Okay, Sadik Tes Amid Aleph. When the Sefer is speaking that you undersold, it must be the Reisha speaking where you sold it for the right price, and therefore you could bring a raya. Kesuvos arba meya zuz. Haksuba was 400 zuz. Machul lezeh b'mana, and she sells one more, so it's 300. And the fourth mana, ula'achron yafa mana b'dina b'mana. All right, so she sells the last one, a 125 for 100, for a 400. So she spent 25 more. She had no right to that land. Mechra batel, shall kula mechra kayim. So l'chayra, there we introducing the concept of cheapness. So it must be the Reisha speaking where there's not cheapness. Says the Mulay, Reisha v'Sefer b'da'azo, they're both speaking where you undersold. The Sefer ha'kamash malon, timer da'azo b'diasme. The reason why it's batel is because the assignment are, the assignment, she's only entitled to 400 and the extra quarter is going to the assignment. Aval b'didah, where it's hers, mechra kayim. Vis-a-vis, again, she's entitled to a 400 and she's selling for 100. Right, each field she's selling for 100 mechra kayim. Now, Fred the Gemara, if that's the pshat hamad the Reisha shamim, we hear this from the Reisha. Kesuvos masayim umachra shava mana. The ksuba was 200. She sold it for 100. The masayim, her ksuba masayim umachra shava mana b'masayim. She was a good lady. She sold for 100 for 200. I shava masayim b'mana was she undersold. So here's when she went underneath niskabel ksubasa. So in other words, I hear that from the Reisha that that if you undersell the ksuba's bottle. So why would you think in the case of when she's selling 125 that it's speaking where she went cheaply? I heard it from the Reisha. So Madatema hasamhud is stalkola mehai beisolagami. There it's speaking where you're leaving the field completely. Abu Hachad nigzar mana rishain. Let's in the case of the 100, 100, 100, and 125. Let's be guys on Rishan at the mana. Achron Kamash Malan. Okay, let me just tell you what we just said. There's a lot of verbiage and okay. Let's go back to the Shaila, guys, outside. What was the Shaila? The Shaila was whether a shliach does more than he's supposed to do. So zichra on what he's more to do, there's no shaykhis. What he did do, in other words, he's supposed to sell a lesech, he sold the core. What about the original lesech? Is he still in there or not in there? So the Gemara wanted to bring a raya from our Mishnah that no. The Gemara wanted to bring a raya that the mecha is batel. What is the raya? A woman who had a field she had a ksuba for 100. She sold a field of 125 for 125. In other words, she did more. She only tied to 100. She did 125. It says mecha batel. So let's be paishin a shayla. If you sell more, then even the original lesech is out of bounds. That's what the Gemara attempted to say. The Gemara totally refutes that. So here's the shachla v'tarya back and forth to either reinstate that or refute. Reinstate or refute. Okay, guys. The maskana of the Gemara is we're not paishet the shayla. Got it? At the end of the day, you're not paishet the shayla. We don't know if in fact the shlichus is intact or the shlichus is batel. That's the bottom line. We want to be paishet from the Mishnah that the mech is batel. Good. Says the Gemara. 1 second. That's not pshat in the Mishnah. It's not pshat 125 for 125. It's 125 for 100. Why? Because she undersold. Read the Gemara, undersold. We have the sefer to tell me he's undersold. 100, 100, 100, and she's selling. And the last one is 125. You're 400. You're selling for 100. So you're underselling the whole time. And still, so if that's speaking about underselling, it must be the case of 125 is speaking where you sold it for 125. Says the Gemara, no. They're both speaking where you're underselling. One is speaking where the underselling is for the assignment. That's the case of 100, 100, 100, 125. And this is where she undersells. Fred the Gemara, where she undersells, what are you talking about? I don't need the 125 to tell me where she undersells. I know that from the Resha. She sells a field for 200, for 100. She lost. So therefore, it must be the 125 is speaking 125, 125, not 125, 100. Says the Gemara, no. I would say in the case of 201 is she's removing herself completely. Mashen Kane, in the case of the 125, she's not removing herself completely. So they're Kamash Malan. So the bottom line is we want to pledge to the Shiloh. Okay, I don't know if that made it any better. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But we're going to do what we do, and we're going to go on. The greatness of Daf Yomi. Okay, now there's the same Gemara, but another way. Ikadi Amri, there are those who say differently. Ikadi Amri, that it's not speaking where you bought more, we're speaking where he bought less. Ikadi Amri, here's the way the Shiloh went. Haloiti boilach. Heichad amalei zil zavnli lischa, go buy from me go sell from me a lesech, v'zavnli kura, and he sold a core. The Vadai Maisaval Devarav Have, Vadai the Shlichus is intact. He's Maisaval Devarav, the guy wants to sell a half, he's going to sell a whole. Kiti Boilach, you know when the Shaila is? The Amalei Zil Zavali Kura, go sell for me a core, the Azal Vazavale Lischa, and he sold a half a core. So it's the opposite. In other words, it's going to have the same Shaila. Did he do a Shlichus or not? Mi Amrinan Amalei. Right, the shliach can tell the mishalayach, I did you a good turn. If you didn't need the money, you wouldn't be able to have charata. In general, people kept on to their land. It was a very bad thing to sell land. Land is a real estate is even bisman hazeh. It gives you a foundation. It's there. It's worth. It goes up. It doesn't. Ultimately, it doesn't get lost. People, when they have to sell the land, it was considered a chesaron. So listen, you told me to sell a whole field, a whole core, I'm selling you a half, and I'm doing you a taiva, because let's say you won't need so much money. If you had went through the whole deal, you'd have extra cash, and then you won't be able to get your field back. But now, guess what? You'll have enough cash, and if you don't need it, you don't need it. In Baruch Hashem, you'll have half a field more than you have. That's one way to look at it, and therefore the shlichus would still be intact, and it's a good sale. And guess what? And what happens? I don't have enough money, and I have to sell now the other half. So instead of one star, I have two stars. Instead of one sale, I have two sales. Correct? It's the same amount. You're selling a half and a half, which equals one. It's not good for a person to go out that he's selling his fields. A, I think it's not good for the family reputation. Or B, Mislam, it's not good for business, because people will think the guy, look, he needs money. So 1 second, I'm not going to give him such a prime price. Maybe the guy needs the money really bad. So there's two studying to the Shiloh. So again, he sells to sell a core. He wants to give a half. He says, is the shlichus intact with the taina of I'm doing you a toiva? Because again, you'll have, if you need money, you can always sell a second, sell it again, and like this, you won't have a problem of not being able to go back on the deal. Or no, okay, the shliach says, I sent you to sell one field. I don't want to have a lot of shtaris. I don't know the ramifications of having a lot of shtaris, and therefore the shlichus is bottle. That's the studim to the Shiloh. In the original Shiloh, the Shiloh was if he sells more. In this Shiloh was saying if he sells more, the shlichus is zichawat still intact. If you sent for a half and you sold it for a core, ma'asav devarav, and therefore the lesech would be a good deal. Again, and the second the Shiloh is no, that's not the Shiloh. The Shiloh is where he told him to sell the whole thing and he only sold half of it. That's the Shiloh, and those we have the studim in the Shiloh. Says the Gemara. Amar Rab Chanina Misura Toshma. Come in here. Nasan ladina shel zahav. Now, a dina shel zahav is worth 25 silver dinarim. This is a dinar of gold. 25. We had this before. It basically there are 4 sloyim to a dinar. So you'd have what? You'd have six dinar. You would have six ma, which give you 24. 6 times 4. So again, we're dealing with a half it really is 3.5 and 3.5, a total of 7. But again, we're going to deal with let's deal with the number of 3, okay? So it's a golden dinar is going to be worth 6 sloyim. 6 sloyim, okay? Now, he gives him about 6 sloyim. So let's translate it for the Gemara. We have usage in the Gemara. He gives him 6 sloyim. It's a big crisis here about the numbers, about with the half and everything. But bottom line is, he gives him 6 sloyim. For Amaloi says the following. This is again a Mishnah in Me'ilah. Havali chalak, bring for me a tunic. I want a tunic, and this money, guys, he's unaware that this money is hegdish. So if once this money changes the rishus, it leaves the rishus a hegdish because he used it. You're mile behegdish. That's the classic. So now you tell the shliach, go buy me a tunic for 6 sloyim. For halach vehevi loy b'shalish. He now goes and brings him a chalak worth 6. Ubashalish talis, and the other 3 sloyim he uses to buy a talis. Shneim malu, they're both mile. Sai the mishaleach, the one who sent him, the balamois, and Sai the shliach. Now says the Gemara. So now, guys, this is a case of where you told to buy more and you bought less. I told you to sell a whole field. You sold a half a field. I told you to spend 6 sloyim on a chaluk, and you spend 3, right? That's the tzushtel. That's the parallel. You're doing less. And nonetheless, it would make sense now that he's mile. Again, you were saying the balabayas is mile. Why is he mile? If the shliach doesn't do a shlichus, he's not mile. We said yesterday, mil is one of the places we say yesh shliach the devar avera. That's only if the shliach does the shlichus. So if I send you to spend 6 and you spend 3, you don't do shlichus. So why am I mile? And what's the answer? It must be that that's considered that you are doing shlichus. It must be you're doing a shlichus. So Mela, if I sent you to sell a field for a kur and you sold it you only sold a lesech, half the field, then you did your shlichus. So let's be paishet to Shaila from Me'ilah to our Shaila here in Kesuvos. If you're going to say, when I told you to spend 6 and you spend 3, you're not doing your shlichus. Amai mal, why is the mishaleach mal? You didn't do your shlichus. Yesh shliach levar avera means yesh shliach if you do the shlichus. But over here you didn't do your shlichus. So why am I mal? So l'chayr we can be placed the shaila from Me'ilah. Very geschmack. So the hachamay askinon the aitzi lei shava sheish b'shalish. He did a shlichus. You know what he did? He went ahead and he got him a great deal. He gave him 3. He gave him a 3, a tunic that was worth 6 for 3. His shlichus was to get him a 6 tunic. You did. You got a great deal. So you did your shlichus. Therefore he's mile. Therefore he's mile. For Gemara, ihachi shliach amay mile. So why did the shliach do wrong then? And for the Gemara, a talis, because he spent the other 300 talis. So now, read the Gemara, ihachi. If you're going to tell me that this is the case, that's the case where you got a good deal, yes. Aim is safer to that Mishnah in Me'ilah. Let's look at let's look at the sefer of the. Let's look at the sefer there in the case there. Okay, in the case of Me'ilah, let's look in the sefer there. Ihachi. It's speaking where what the shirt was worth 6. Aim is safer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. In this case that you gave, where you sent him for 3, for 6, and he bought you a 3, you're telling me the balabais, says Rabbi Yehuda, the balabais is not mile. Now, if it's like you're saying that he did his shlichus and he just got him a good deal, then why are you mile? Why are you mile? Bishleim, you tell me he didn't do his shlichus, that I can understand Rabbi Yehuda. So over here, Rabbi Yehuda is saying, on that case that you described, if you're telling me he did his shlichus because he's getting ultimately a tunic that's worth 6, right? Why is he mile? And for the Gemara, from sheyachal loymar, chalak gadol yisim avakesh. You know what? I wanted a bigger one. The ata avesli chalak katan ra, and you bought me what? You bought me a small one that's not good. But according to you, that it's speaking, he got him a great deal. What do you mean you bought a one that's not good? It is good. In other words, we're ascertaining from the words of Rabbi Yehuda, how could you zetz ein the Reisha that he did a shlichus by buying a 6 for a 3, when Rabbi Yehuda Gufa tells him, you didn't do me a good turn, you bought me something that's raw. Raw's mashma, it's not a good deal. So the Gemara, my raw, you know what raw means? After the Gemara, raw b'damim. It means that what? That the price was raw, meaning since you got such a good deal, if you 3 for 6, can you imagine if you would have spent the full 6 on a chaluk? You could have got me a 12. That's what raw means. That's what raw means. So amalei I see sali b'shish. If you would have bought me sold for 6, then kol shekain to have a shava tarti sare. Certainly you would have gone ahead what and gotten me what a better one. The bottom line is he did a shlichus over here, and therefore the shlichus over here is not the case. In other words, you can't be poishit from this our shaila. Let's go through it. Our shaila is predicated upon where the guy was supposed to spend more and he spends less. Good. Over here, he spent exactly what he was supposed to spend. He spent 6. In other words, he was supposed to get 6 and he got 6. It only cost him 3. He was a very, very good businessman. So therefore, it has no bearing on a shaila whatsoever. We question that case from the Sefer of Rabbi Yehuda, and we're fitting in the words of Rabbi Yehuda to fit the case. You got a good deal, 6-3. Guess what? I'm not moil. You know why? Because if you 6-3, you could have gotten me 6-12. So Mamela, you didn't do your shlichus, and therefore I'm not moil. That's what Rabbi Yehuda time is. Because that's machloikis. The bottom line is it has no bearing on our shaila, because why? In fact, he did his shlichus according to from the Tanakama.
The shliach can't tiny that he saved him meila on the other 3, and therefore he saved him the extra chomish.
Where's he saving a meila on the other 3?
Because if he would have spent the whole 6, the balabas would have been moel on 6. Now
I don't understand. It's not a koyach taina. The bottom line is, were you might see money from Hegdish or not? Well, you might see money from Hegdish or not. He was might see money from Hegdish, right? He where's the koyach taina over here? The shaila is, if you didn't do your shlichus, I'm not moel. What kind of time is? I saved your money. The bottom line is, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. I asked you, according to Rabbi Yehuda, I asked you to spend 6. I didn't ask you to save any money. Then Mela, if you didn't do your shlichus, I'm not moel. What kind of time is it, Avi? It's either or. Did you do the shlichus or didn't you do the shlichus, right? So like the Tanakama, you did your shlichus. I wanted to go in and you did your shlichus, and not in fact you did your shlichus. You didn't do more than you were supposed to do. You got me 6. That's it. Like Rabbi Yehuda, you didn't do it. So the bottom line is this: you can't answer our shaila from this Gemara. That's the bottom line. So the Gemara now wants to prove that this is the Dekanami, Diktani, Moida Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would be Moida, not in the case of a shirt where you could have got me a better shirt. He's Moida bekitnius, with kitnius, legumes, sheshnei malu, they're both moil. Even Rabbi Yehuda, they say they're both moil, even if you got him a good deal. She had kitnius bisela, because kitnius bisela. Kitnius wad is bisela, the rate of kitnius for a sela, the kitnius bepruta. In other words, if you spend 100 or you spend $1, it's all going to be the same. In other words, kitnius is 100 ones or it's 100, so there's no difference over there. And he can't taina, had you spent 100, I would have got a better price, right? His taina, like Rabbi Yehuda is, had you spent 6, I would have got a nicer shirt. By kitnius, you can't taina, had you spent all the money and not half the money, you could have got more kitnius. Good? Good. Says the Gemara. Again, this is just the proof. Shmamina, you can figure it out from here. Okay. Now, Gemara wants to know what exactly is the case that you're telling me you can't get a better price by spending more money. If it's a place that sells by shuma, so in that case, by shuma, you're estimating, you're going to give a best estimation if you spend more money. It's going to be a cheaper price. So Papa, it means it's a place where they measure using a vehicle called the kan. The amalei kana bepruta. In other words, like I said, each kan is view each kan as $1. So dollar to 100, it's 100. So in other words, you're not going to, since it's a place with there's a certain measurement, they're not going to give you a better price. And therefore what? Rabbi Yehuda would say Yamayel, they're both mile. Good? Okay, bottom line is we weren't Paishit the Shaila from Me'ila. Let's go back to the Shaila again. What's the Shaila? You were supposed to sell the whole land, you only spoke half. The Balabas, the Mishlech kind is, I'm doing you a toiva, I'm doing you a solid because I'm saying in case you're going to need more money, you won't need the money and you'll have the land. And he time is, I don't want to have more shtaris. And so that's which way is right. We want to be patient from Me'ila, from the case of what, where he spent less, 3 and 6. And we said, no, there he did a shlichus because what he really got one that was worth 6. Tashma, Haisa our Mishnah, the latter part. Kesuvos arba mea zuz. The ksuba was 400 zuz. Machru lezeh b'mana ulezeh b'mana. And he sells it to 4 people. The first 3 for 100. Well, the latter one, yafa mana b'dinar b'mana. She sells the last field that 125 for 100. Now she has her 400. However, the last field, since there's 25, she has no shaykhs to. She has 25, she has no shaykhs to. In that case, what? It's mecha bottle. Now, what is it bottle? It's bottle on the last one. Fellas, what about the first 3? Isn't the first 3 where she's supposed to sell for 400 and she's selling 100? We want to parallel this or zushtel to our case. So the first early, she's entitled to 400. She's selling the Havamina is at one field for 100. And nonetheless, the Mech is Kayim. So let's be Paishat Shaila, guys. Let's be Paishat Shaila that what? That where you're supposed to spend more and you spend less, that the sale is a good sale. One more time. She has 400 coming to her. She only spends it 1. So we see 4 to 1, and this sale is intact. So we Paishat Shaila. It makes sense. Let's see it inside. Tashma. Haisuksuba aramea zuz. Machal lezebemanu lezebemanu lachrin yafamanu bedina b'mana shalachrin batal. V'shal kula mechrin kayim. And all of mech is kayim. So let's be paishet the shaila that when you want to spend more and you spend less, it's a good mecher. And from Gemara, K'nom Rav Shisha B'Rei Davidi B'Ketini. We're not speaking about one field. We're speaking about the field she's selling is 100. In other words, she's selling 4 parcels of land. She's not spending one big land and cutting off part of it. Each one is a separate lot. Each lot is 100, and the last lot's a 125. So therefore, it's not a case of 400, 100. It's a case of 100, 100, and it's a case of 100, 100, 100, adding up to 4. Again, in the Havamina, guys, it was this. It was a field of 4, and she only sold 1. And the Teretz says no. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. Guys, good. Anyway. I feel like the third base coach, giving the hand signals. Okay, now. Pshita nu Gemara. Pshita amala echad v'loy l'shnayim. I want you to go ahead and sell the field to 1 person and not to 2 people. Again, he doesn't want more shtaris, guys, right? So he says openly, sell this field, right? He says the shliach, sell this field, right, to 1 and not 2, right? It's pashit that only 1. Ha'amalei la'echad v'loy l'shnayim. Amalei le'echad stam. Let's say he sells sell this field to 1. What's the din? Is he dafka makbid on 1 or not? Rav Huna amar le'echad v'loy l'shnayim. He's makbid. Rav Huna d'ami shavayu le'echad v'afilu l'shnayim le'echad v'afilu l'meya. So Rav Chisda says he's not makbid on the 1. He mentioned 1, but he's not makbid on the 1. Ikla Rav Nachman l'sura oil l'gabei Rav Chisda v'Rabba bar Rav Huna amar le'ki agavna mai. What's the din if a person says sell a field stam? So amar le Rav Nachman told him so. Le'echad v'afilu l'shnayim, like Rav Chisda. Le'echad v'afilu l'meya, like Rav Chisda, not like Rav Huna. So amulei afagav de tosh shliach. Even what if the shliach goes ahead and makes a mistake? Even if the shliach makes a mistake, right? And let's go. He sells it for less. Should we say the mekach is still in place? In other words, just like the 1, we're saying is lav dafka the 1, right? And it's more than 1. Maybe when he says the tosh shliach also, and he sells it for less. So Amalahu Rav Nachman told him the tosh shliach like kamina. I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about whether shliach made a mistake. So when the shliach made a mistake, it's the mecha's off. But when he says 1, it's a filu 2. So Amalei va'omamar ein oino lekarkois. Right? There's no din of oino in karka, right? There's no the din of Aina is if you sell it more than a sixth, right? The meches batal, less than a sixth, usually mevater, and the sixth, then you have a choice. So in this, but that's not by karka. Hanimili hechid the Torah balabayas. Aval Torah shliach. In other words, they asked them if the shliach went ahead and there's no din of Aina, so if it's less than a sixth of the difference, so the sale should be a good sale. If he made a mistake, and that we said, when do we say no? That's if the balabayas sells it. If the shliach sells it, then there is a din of Aina. Amalei, because the balabayas can say that kuni shad resich v'loy lavisi. I sent you to go ahead for my positive by getting the right price and not to mess me up. Umanat tamer the shiny ben shliach lebalabayas. How do you notice the difference between the shliach and the balabayas? That none. Okay, fellas. Now there's three dargas in usually separating. Usually Shmuel says for truma you can be even one kernel can go ahead and truma, but the Chacham gave a regular person gives 1/50th, a person who's a little cheaper is 1/60th, a person who's more the revach gives 1/40th. Okay, 1/40th is the person who's more 1/60 is for the cheapo, 1/50 is the normal person. So where do we see the difference between the shlich and the balabas? The following Mishnah. Say v'tarim, right? Go ahead and take off truma, and he didn't tell him how much. So tarim kedas balabayas. The shliach goes and it's tarim, but usually the balabayas takes off. It's 140, 150, 160. The main of your day, balabayas says he doesn't know. So tarim kibain instead he takes off 150th. Echem mechamishim. Piches asara, right? If he goes 140, or hoiseb asara 160. Truma say truma because that's within the realm. The ilu, but let's say more than that. Let's say we take off 1/20th, then it wouldn't be good. However, that's by the what? That's by the shliach. That's by the shliach. We say that that's the amount by the shliach. However, by the balabas, by the balabas, the ilu gabi balabayis Tanya, we learned in a brisa, Torum, if the balabayis takes off truma, the ola biyada yafilu echem yesrim, and let's say by inadvertently he goes ahead and he takes off 1/60th. Truma say truma. So we see that what? It's that it's more easier to go ahead and say that there's a din of Aina by the shliach than there's balabayis. So we've proven that what that din that you had a shiloh about tov, you made a mistake that the deal's off. That's dafka by the shliach. By the balabas, we'd say there's a din of no din of Aina. Toshma. That's again. What's the original shiloh? One person doesn't mean one or two. Tashma, Kesuvos arba meyazuz. The Kesuvos was 400 zuz, right? Machal lezeh b'mana, lezeh b'mana, right? And l'achrin shav b'mana v'dinar, shel achrin batel, shel kulam machar kayim. Now, l'chayra, the almana, she is selling it for the assignment, right? She's selling it for the assignment, and she's selling l'chayra a bunch of fields. Like in other words, this is one person for one assignment, and yet she's selling it. So you see that means even 1, 2, 3, or 4. So in other words, we're not worried about adding on shtaris, guys. We're not. In other words, what's a shaila? Why would a person care that if you at the end of the day he's selling his property? Why would he care if he sells the property to one person or he sells it to 2 people, right? So over here, what is she doing? She's entitled to Kesuba for 400, and she's selling what? Pashas Nahavmi the Gemara. She's selling it to 4 different people, and we're saying the first 3 work. So let's be Pasha Shaila. 1 to 2 works, just like 1 to 3 works. And the answer is Bikatini. It's speaking about it's 1, right? We said that's what we introduced before. So Amar Rav Shisha Breder Avidi was speaking Bikatini, was speaking where she's selling not one field, breaking it up 1, 2, 3, 4. She's selling 3 different parcels of field. Okay, and we'll call this a day. I'm looking to say.